welcome back to the Stake main stage. I'm very excited for this next topic, as I'm sure you all are, which is the inside scoop on scaling a startup. Having spent 3 years at Stake myself and having met a lot of founders over that time, I think I have worked out the recipe. It's that you need to be 50% genius and 50% maniac. But no doubt there is more to it than that. So to speak from the chair of experience, to talk to you about how to grow a business and the pitfalls you should watch out for, our panelists of experts are here to unpack it for you. So introducing our panelists, first we have someone who I'm very honored to call a friend, Matt Leiobowitz. Matt is the CEO and founder of Stake, one of the leading brokerages for ASX and US share trading. Welcome, Matt. Come on up. And we also have Sam Koslowski, business leader, journalist, presenter, and commentator. Sam is also the co-founder of the Daily Oz, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. They've done amazing things. It's Australia's leading social-first news organisation targeted at young Australians. Also welcoming back Paul Wilson, who will be hosting. Paul is the co-founder and managing partner at Baylor Technology Investments. So again, before we kick off, just a disclaimer. All this information is for education and entertainment purposes. This does not constitute financial advice. Handing over to the panel. Thank you.
Thanks very much. There wasn't long between drinks for me getting back on stage, and I'm just wondering if it's a coincidence that it coincides with the bar being open and me not being able to get there yet. But welcome, Matt. Welcome, Sam. We're excited to be talking to you about scaling a startup. Maybe if I could start with you, Matt, just ask you to introduce yourself, maybe tell us a little bit about Stake.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously you'll see it around a bit today. Online brokerage, really built for the new generation of investors that want to get a little bit more out of the technology that's available. We started back in 2017. Before that, I was actually a lawyer at the same place as Sam. I was at Allen's. It's probably changed names since I was there. It was that long ago, but
Linklaters.
It was Allen's Arthur Robinson. It was something before. It had its like 200-year anniversary, something crazy, a few weeks ago. And then after that, I went to Optiva. It's a trading firm. My maths probably got me into law school, and just really just loved the ability. Oh, I don't know if that's me. I don't know what that is. So I was at Optiva for just under a decade, and then started Stake after that. It's eerie.
Let's press on. Sam, what about yourself?
I am the co-founder of the Daily Oz. So it'll make a lot more sense if you whip out your phones and have a look at the Daily Oz on Instagram. That's the easiest place to find us. And we're Australia's largest social-first news source. We've got 400,000 followers on Instagram, and we talk on various podcasts and newsletters and videos to about 1.2 million Australians a month under 30. So it's been really interesting trying to start a media company in a very tough media landscape.
And Sam, just so everyone's on the same page, what do you mean by social first?
So what we mean by social first is that, is that me? What we mean by social first, I don't think it's me, yeah. What we mean by social first is that you should be able to read the start and end of a news piece without leaving a social media app. So no click out to read more, no paywall, no, here's the first bit and then you got to pay for the last bit. The entire article is on social media.
Thanks. And while we've got the sound working nicely, maybe you can keep going, Sam, on... can you tell us about a couple of moments that have stood out for you on the journey?
So my co-founder and I, Zara, she's 25, I'm 27. We started this 5 years ago. I was a lawyer, as Matt said, and Zara worked in politics. And we did it on the side for 3 years. And the moment where we knew that we had to really quit our full-time jobs and go full startup mode was there was a piece about us in the Financial Review. And both of us on the same day got hauled into our boss's offices saying, what the fuck's this piece doing in the Financial Review? I thought you were at work. And that's when we kind of knew we had to either dial down our commentary on the Australian media landscape or go full flight. So we did. We raised a really small first round just to be able to say we can pay ourselves a minimum wage as founders and put some money behind paying journalists, because we don't think that journalists should have to work for free. There's a very big internship culture in journalism, and we try and counteract that by paying people for their work. So that was the first big moment. Then the pandemic, into Black Lives Matter, into Trump, into an Australian election. That kind of cadence of news events really made our audience explode, and that was fantastic. And I think the other big moment has actually been this week, where we launched our first mini-series podcast. So we have a daily podcast. We've done 500 episodes of that. Zara and I still do it every day. It's one of the things we really love about the job. But we just launched a 4-part series of 10 years since Julia Gillard's misogyny speech. And it was the first time we've tried something longer form and more kind of beautifully produced. And it's the #1 news podcast in the country.
Terrific. Thanks for that. And Matt, what are a couple of things that have stood out for you on the journey?
Oh, well, it's been so long now. I feel like 4 generations now, but it's actually only 6 years. So, I mean, I think you're so naive when you start. You just get involved, you see a problem, you try to solve it, and then more and more problems just keep stacking up on top of each other, and you end up with 135 people, and then there's just problems that are just everywhere. Good problems, they're problems to solve. Obviously, we were early in the journey. I think, there's been a lot of competition that's joined the market space pretty much around the pandemic, a little bit after that started. So, just dealing with competition, you make lots of mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes. So I think it's just learning from those. Obviously, I'm not going to run away from it, but obviously GameStop was a pretty crazy moment in the markets, and that was one that I still speak to my therapist about now, I think. It's just something you can't escape, and it's a phenomenon we probably won't see again. And then it's just, making, as I said, just going through it, managing people, trying to build a business at the same time as dealing with everything else. And yeah, it's just, it all stands out. I don't think there's only one thing, obviously, but it's been a fun ride.
Oh, fair enough. And congratulations to both of you on where you've gotten your businesses to already. There's lots of books, there's lots of advice out there on how to scale your startup. In your experience, is there anything that's in the conventional wisdom that you've had a different experience with?
I don't know. I mean, look, I read a lot as well, but I don't think anyone quite tells you how hard it's going to be. I mean, reading that it's hard, it's like you always think, oh, it won't be hard for me. It's hard for everyone, ultimately. I think about the impact it has. I've got married with 3 kids. It's just like the toll it has on others is probably not what other people write about. So just being reflective of that. If I look back and, I wouldn't do it again. It sounds really weird. I wouldn't do it, and I'm pretty honest about that. It's just so much harder than anyone, everyone says it's hard, but they don't actually, until you live it, you don't really feel it. So, but look, at the same time, I've got a lot out of it and I've enjoyed it, but I think that naivety is something that it doesn't matter what the wisdom is, you probably wouldn't listen anyway. So,
and I think for us, the key lesson we've learned in scaling up the business is try and execute whatever you need to do in-house until you really feel like your skills aren't matching up and you need to bring someone in, whether it's a new full-timer or contracting it out to somebody who knows what they're doing. But whether it's Zara and I editing audio for the podcast before you bring in a full-time podcast producer, or us designing all of our banner ads for marketing campaigns instead of just taking on external advisors and that kind of stuff. I think we keep things in-house until it's really feeling like we can't do it anymore, and then we say, okay, what do we need to add to the business? And so we've really only hired one by one. We're now 13 people, and we've really hired that one by one. There hasn't been a big influx of 10 new people in the building.
Thanks, Sam. So given we're at FinFest and it's a financial focus, people are interested in investing, I'd like to hear from you guys a little bit about, from your perspective on the other side, your fundraising journey. How did you find it, Sam?
So we raised a round of $500,000 when we first quit our jobs, and that was a friends and family round. And I think the key to that round was we were really honest, and we said, we know that we can build an audience. We don't know how to monetize that audience yet, but we think there's something there. And that meant that we weren't setting false expectations that we were sitting on a gold mine. And we say no to a lot more ad deals than we say yes to, because we are very specific about who we work with. And so that set the expectations right there. And then I had in my mind that we should raise another round at the beginning of 2023. And my investors sat down in about February of this year and said, do it now, put some cash in the bank while you can. And they were 100% right. So we raised a round of 1.2 million in July. And the key to that round was getting a really good lead investor who helps the other investors kind of fall in behind. And I had been calling that investor every couple of weeks on his mobile for the last almost 2 years. And he hadn't picked up yet. But I just kept going, and text messages and everything. So his name's David Ginjal. He was the CEO of Channel 9. And for us, that was a real signal to the market that we're a valid media company. We mean business, and we're here to stay. And that really helped us in the last couple of months.
Terrific. What about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, our journey's a little bit different. I came from I was pretty well paid in my previous job, and actually self-funded it for, I think, the first 3 years. And we had contact with VCs that were reaching out, so it was quite interesting. And obviously, it's a firm over in the UK, DST, and Tiger Global. They approached us and said, we really like what you're doing, can we get involved? That was in, when was that? 2020 maybe, I think. It goes so fast. And that was our sort of first external raise, and that was for $40 million. So that was a lot of money at the time. And it was actually pretty straightforward. It sounds, obviously we had bootstrapped it pretty much the whole way through, and we were very mission-led, and it was more about like the product. And I didn't have a network in VC land at all. I didn't really know who to speak to. It was sort of just one that sort of happens organically. And then obviously we raised that amount of money, and then a few months later, an investor that saw the deal came knocking and said, why weren't we called up? Why didn't you? That's like, it wasn't really on my mind. And we could sort of see that competition coming, and it just made sense to have a bit of firepower. I didn't quite realize how big the prize would be if we got what we did right. And obviously we started with US equities for 5 years, and we've now gone on to Aussie equities. We're helping people set up their own super funds, all sorts of stuff like that. So when the prize became bigger to really change the way wealth is done in Australia, it just made sense to go again. And when someone came inbound for the second time, with the market sort of, I wouldn't say it was shaky, but it was very competitive. Just to have a little bit more than the next person, having a bigger grenade is always helpful.
Absolutely. Oh, that's terrific. And boy, it's nice to have people come knocking on your door. That's fantastic. Well done. So from money to another key aspect of any startup, which is people. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, did you have a founding partner or team? How did you go about scaling, the delegation journey?
Yeah, I mean, look, my story is, as I said, I was at Optiva. I actually funded Stake for the first year. I wasn't in it. I was really happy where I was. I believed that there was a better way for Australians to invest. I didn't believe there was a new brokerage out there that really changed the way investing was done. It was pretty much CommSec and no one. But if you're not going to roll up your sleeves and do it yourself, it's not going to quite get there. So I jumped in the beginning of 2017. So we established a company in 16, got it to market in 17, changed the team around a bit. The CEO that was in let him go, and that was just one of those things that happens. And three of us, myself, Jan, who's still with us, is my co-founder and CFO, and John, who was our CTO at the time, just built it. There was 5 or 6 of us building a brokerage. It was just crazy when I think about where we are now. And then you've got a network around you. People like, I've got Brian, who I knew through my cousin, Joel, who was our CTO. He interviewed at Optiva, ended up at another place, and you accumulate people you know. I mean, no one's going to jump in and join a crazy little startup that literally's got a dirty kitchen and wants to take on CommSec. I mean, who's going to think that's going to last for very long? So you have to go with trust. You have to go with people that you know, that trust you, that believe in you. They're not there for the money, they're there for what we can build together, and ultimately then your network grows. And so we've built around people we know, and then as the face of the business has changed, it's become more of an established business, and you're just getting more and more people that actually want to join you. They've taken less risk now, but the people at the beginning, that's why they get the upside from the journey, because they take the most risk at the beginning.
Terrific. Sam?
And for us, it's just myself and Zara. We're the two co-founders. I actually put up a post on LinkedIn because my therapist told me to, saying, I want to start a media company. Does anyone want to do it with me? And Zara was the only person to reply. And so I was like, fuck, all right. You and me, mate, let's go. So that was the best decision I ever made. Then our hires have all been people under 30 who think that there's more to media than what's out in the market and what's on offer. We're really aggressive with our equity share scheme and really try and make people feel like we're all building this together. And the thing that we say internally a lot is that this is all just one big experiment. And that phrase, I find, really relaxes people, because what we're doing is, it's risky. We don't know if it's going to work. It's extremely volatile in terms of our competitors can be quite brutal. And so that feeling of we're all just shooting our shot and trying our best really changes the culture to not be one of really high expectations, but let's just see how we go. And we actually get better performance from everyone when they're more relaxed and along for the ride.
Absolutely, that's fascinating. We deal with lots and lots of startup companies, and but most of the time they're reasonably well established by the time Bailador invests, and they've got some staff and they've got revenue and a pretty good plan. And we talk about what's happened so far, what's the plans for the future. Can you start, Sam, and just talk about plans versus being opportunistic and that part of a journey for a startup?
I find the startup landscape really interesting because it seems to me like there's two main schools of thought in terms of how founders pitch their startups to potential investors. And one is we're building something really strong that is a potential acquisition down the line. We have a bit of revenue coming in, it's keeping the lights on, it's allowing us to expand, but the real play here is that there's a big exit on the horizon. And the other is we're building a sustainable business that the growth might be a little more steady, but we're really trying to build a business without an exit in mind. And I think that for investors, it's a little bit unnerving to hear a founder say that they're playing for an exit, because that's really elevates the risk. On the other hand, they see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so when we talk to investors, we're always kind of toggling the two. It's my preference to build a sustainable media business, but you have to remind investors that they're going to get their money back out at a certain point as well. And I think the key point is not over-promising. I think the points where we've really gotten ourselves in trouble is when we've said, for example, we did a piece with the Herald to announce our raise, our second raise. And the last question, like almost as we were about to hang up the phone, the journalist said, do you think you'd ever go overseas one day? And we said, yeah, we're looking at it, we're thinking about expanding to other markets, maybe the UK would be a good place to start. And we opened the paper the next morning and it said the Daily Oz is announcing their expansion plans into the UK. And our investors called and said, are we? So I've learned from that not to throw a big fish to a journalist without meaning to. And I think the other important part is keeping them in the loop. I don't know about you, Paul, but for founders, I think the most important thing is a monthly update email goes a long way to really making them feel like part of the journey, which they are.
Sam, we totally agree. Under-promise and over-deliver. Yeah. And one thing we say to our teams is have the same disclosure threshold for bad news as good news. Because founders tend to be sort of naturally optimistic, ambitious people, and they love to tell you about the wins. But actually, where we can help is things that might be going not so well. And so, I couldn't agree with you more. Just communicate a lot. Matt, how do you think about planning versus being opportunistic?
Yeah, I think if you plan too much, you don't do. You just got to jump in there and see, where things go. And I think it's a little bit, I think a little bit of maths terms like a binomial tree. You go here, and if it doesn't work, you go there, and you go back, and you zigzag. And winners, you just try to find a way through. I just want to change the market. I really believe that there's a better way for, I'm for investors, people that want to manage themselves. As I always say to someone, like, why are you building? It's like, well, you don't send someone else to go to the gym for you. Why would you do that with your money? It's it's the same thing for me. So just want to build something that's really enduring. No plans on an exit. It's not really the path for us. It's really about building something that changes the way people do things. If you want to get from A to B and in your finances and your wealth, and you want to be engaged with the market, we just want to help you get there. So whatever we look at opportunities, does it help us create that path for our customers? And I'm a big fan of what Amazon have done with working backwards. So you start with what the customer's after, and then you decide whether you do it or not. And that's the same with opportunities. It's like, do our customers need this? This is the best thing for our customers. Because our staff, we're building it for what we want ultimately, and what our customers want. We are our own customers. So if we stick to that, like, any opportunity just needs to fall in that sort of focus area.
Terrific. Well, my final question, just given your answer there, Matt, might be a slightly tricky one. I thought it would just be a nice open finish about, well, what does the future hold for Stake?
Yeah.
What do you think?
On more events like this, I was pretty amazed. I got out of the Uber and he dropped me at the top. I looked down and there was just a line. I'm like, that can't be for a finance festival, right? I don't know what's happening with the ticketing system, but it was just going forever. If we can do more of that, if we can engage more people in the market in their own journeys, and create a better place for people to do the things they're doing, just evolve the space. We're not revolutionary. Stake's not a revolutionary business at all. We just happen to take what's already out there and just make it better and just bring it into one place. So, I think we're going to move from investing, just be damn good at that for now, start moving into that wealth space, and then wherever that goes from there. If that goes into banking and full suite services, then we'll see. But right now, we're just got to nail the investing aspect, and that's on the radar for the next 2 years.
Terrific. Sounds great. Best of luck with it. And Sam, what's the future hold for the Daily Oz?
So our big focuses over the next 12 months would be audience growth. So if you haven't followed the Daily Oz and you're sitting here, for God's sake, press follow on Instagram so that I can feel good about my Saturday. And then I want us to be doing more original journalism. So the big criticism that we get, and it's purely just resources, is that you haven't broken a story yet. You haven't made a really big mark on Australian society, and that's coming for us. I really feel like we're getting ourselves in the right circles. We've got the federal budget in 2 weeks' time. We sent one journalist 2 years ago into lockup. We sent 2 journalists last year into lockup. This year we've got 4 journalists in lockup. So we're really building momentum in the political sphere. And then looking at overseas markets is going to be really important. And then the final thing is we've discovered that we're really powerful researchers. And that's been a little bit of an accident. It's an opportunity. But some of the polls that we put up can get over 100,000 responses. So we really want to build out that polling and research capacity and offer that to private sector companies. And I think young people want to know that brands are listening to them and they want to be part of the conversation. So not very scientific polling, but a really good way to understand audience sentiment.
Well, that's terrific. Well, Sam, Matt, thanks so much for coming along today, sharing parts of your journey. Let's thank the guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Equity mind.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.